Hello everybody, hope you are doing well, and here we are with a live tip and sip. And there was my sip. So here's tonight's tip. We're going to be talking about, am I in a flood zone? As always, I am Paul Trogdon with Sweet Tea Realty, and if you would, subscribe to the channel, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, comment. Always look over here to see if I see anything live or anything along those lines, and then I always try to get back with people after the fact also. So, ready, set, go. Am I in a flood zone? Answer is yes. Good night, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to actually talk about this a little bit because you might be going, Paul, what do you mean, yes? So, I am talking about North Carolina as a whole, from the tip top of the mountains all the way down to the beach. Yes, you are in a flood zone. If it rains where you live, there is a potential of a flood. So, an estimated 45% of homes in the U.S. are at moderate to high risk of loss, and only about 4% of them actually have purchase coverage. Now, that's in, again, the U.S. North Carolina actually ranks in the top 10, always kind of going back and forth, but in the top 10 of a flood risk. 84.5% of losses were actually outside of high-risk flood zones. 68.3% of those were in lower risk, Zone X, and 16.2% were in unmapped areas. Now, here in North Carolina, we have a great flood system from a standpoint of they do a lot of their own mapping. In fact, FEMA uses our maps. Most places, other states, FEMA goes in, does their thing, and they uses FEMA's maps. But FEMA for North Carolina actually follows what North Carolina is doing, which is really nice. So, again, another win for North Carolina whenever it comes to real estate and taking care of things like that. So let's back up for a second and let me ask the question, what is a flood zone? A lot of people always want to say, am I in a flood zone? Well, what actually is a flood zone? Especially since I'm saying that the whole state's a flood zone. All right, so flood zones are intended to be an indication of estimated flood risk, and they are currently used to determine which properties are lender required to carry flood insurance. Now, again, if you own your own property, you bought the property outright, obviously you don't have a lender, but let's talk about what the levels are. So there is a good amount of different levels, but the main levels that we usually see is X, AE, and then VE. So let's talk about your moderate to low. Sometimes you might see shaded B and C. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of read both of those right quick. I have this information in front of me, so I apologize, but again, I know kind of X is kind of everywhere. It's the least amount, but let me go ahead and give the definitions that FEMA has given us. So X is the area of moderate flood hazard, usually the area between the limits of the 100 and 500 year floods. B zones, that's part of the X, are also used to designate based floodplains of lesser hazards, such as areas protected by levees from a 100-year flood, or shallow flooding areas with average depths of less than 1 foot, or drainage areas less than 1 square mile. Now you have, C, still also X rated, is an area of minimal flood hazard, usually depicted on firms as above the 500-year flood level. Zone C may have ponding and local drainage problems that don't warrant a detailed study or designation as base floodplain. Zone X is the area determined to be outside the 500-year flood and protected by levee from 100-year flood. So again, Zone X is bare minimum, but as I said, pretty much that is North Carolina. If you are not in one of these others, you're still pretty much zone X. So that's moderate to low. Now the high level is your zones A or AE, and I'm just going to hit on AE. This is the base floodplain where base flood elevations are provided. AE zones are now used on new format firms instead of the A1 through A30 zones. And again, these are areas with a 1% annual chance of flooding and a 26% chance of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. Because detailed analyses are not performed for each areas, no depths of base flood elevations are shown within these zones. Okay? High coastal is kind of where this hits. So this is the high level of everything. And so this is kind of the VE, V1 through 30, however you want to look at it. And these are coastal areas with a 1% or greater chance of flooding and an additional hazard associated with storm waves. These areas have a 26% chance of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. No base flood elevations are shown within these zones. Coastal areas with a 1% or greater chance of flooding of an additional hazard associated with storm waves. These areas have a 26% chance, and I know I'm kind of reiterating, but just wanted to make sure that I'm giving you guys the information of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. Base flood elevations derived from detailed analysis are shown at selected intervals within these zones. And we'll see where some of this stuff is here shortly. So, I know that this is so riveting and interesting, and I am just, This one's a little bit more important, but, whatever beverage of choice that you have in your hands right now, let's take a sip and take a sip. All right. So, Paul, where do I find this information? How do I find out if am I supposed to have insurance? Do I need insurance? Well, actually it depends. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you have a home that you're using as an investment property or rental, I'm going to say yes. Certain loans require, depending on what level you're in, AEs, VEs, yes. Certain areas depend. Some of them federally you can't even get, federal and sometimes not even personal flood insurance. So you got to be careful with that. And if you're just a worrywart, yes, definitely. Now, according to FEMA, 40% of businesses that are damaged during natural disasters never reopen. So there's a little bit of food for thought for you. So you might be going, okay, Paul, well, you're down there in Wilmington and you're on the southeast coast, and VE, that's basically your islands. AE, that's, right off intercoastal waterways and whatnot. So I'm safe. Okay, you say zone X. Okay, I get it. So let me ask you a question. Where do you think most flooding happens? Comment below. I'm going to take a second. And if I have my Jeopardy music, I would play that right now. That's actually part of most of my live market updates that I do. I play a little bit of Jeopardy music whenever I ask a question. But where do most floods happen here in North Carolina? I'm going to say let's lay North Carolina out into 4 separate things, starting kind of left to right. So left of the state is the mountains. Then you have the Piedmont. Then you have the intercoastal plains, and then you have the tidewater of the coast. So, believe it or not, Piedmont. The Piedmont is actually number 1 with flooding. Number 2, the mountains. How crazy is that? Okay? And then number 3, let's see here. It looks like I might have a little bit of stuff going on, so just want to double check. All right, number 3 is intercoastal plains. And then number 4 is the tidewater coast. So down here at the beach is actually, out of the 4 areas of North Carolina, is the last that gets flooded the most. 99% of the U.S. population lives in a county that has experienced a flood disaster. So flooding can truly happen anywhere. Now, there's a website that I want to share with you guys, and I'm going to move a little bit of my information over. Because I want to share with y'all all right, here we go. So here is the website. Can we see it up here? Barely. All right, so it's flood.nc.gov /NC flood, or sorry, not backslash, /NC flood /. And I have a lot of this information down below. Links are in the description, okay? But check out this website. Look how cool this website is, okay? So with this website here, you can go on, you can go to, you heard me kind of talk about the FIRM, the Furman site. So you have that right here. You have the Frizz site. This is where you can find a ton of information. So let me kind of point you to this. Like I said, I do have the links below, but if I'm wanting to see where a certain home is or anything along those lines, then I can do that. So for kicks and giggles, let's kind of look and see where something might be at. So enter an address or local. So I'm going to put in one that I know really well. All right. So as you can see, it pops up and then it says click on building for details. So we'll click on building. And there we go. Check out this information down here below. Hazard, flood zone X, minimal impact. Not a whole lot of information here. Nearby stream gauges 23. But how cool is this where you can go in and take a look, and of course, you can scroll on out and look where things are, and now you can see where information comes across. Here's some of the waterways and everything. You can see where things kind of hit and where certain flood zones are, with the light blue and the blue, information, again, this is kind of like the supply area and whatnot. This is a flood zone A, the AE type thing. So again, that's one of the things that I was hoping to show you guys, that this is a great resource for you to find out what's going on. It is a great resource from a standpoint of for you if you are wanting to do flood insurance. Now again, if you're renting out a place or anything like that, you definitely always want to have flood insurance on your personal property if you're the one doing the renting. And if you are the one that owns the property, make sure that your people do have renter's insurance and renter's flood insurance to cover them, because certain things don't cover, and some insurance doesn't even cover rain sometimes. So please be careful. Now, flooding is the most costly and most lethal natural disaster that happens, because it can truly happen anywhere. On average, about 114 deaths per year, and just under $8 billion worth of damage a year. And 90% of natural disasters involve flooding. In fact, next week, I'm going to be talking about hurricanes. And obviously, what happens with hurricanes? Flooding. Can help, hits pretty hard. Now, U.S. homeowners with no flood coverage, I kind of gave the number away earlier, but the people that do not have flood coverage in the United States, 96%. 96%. North Carolina, which again, we pretty much said all of North Carolina is a flood zone one way or another, because you are considered Zone X. It's minimal, but it's possible. Guess what? 97% do not have flood insurance. Now, again, like I said, down below, I have some links. So please, please, please check those links out. See where you can go. Play with the websites. Look at the information that is given and whatnot. Because next week, I'm actually my live tip and sip next Wednesday is going to be on hurricanes and getting prepared, because guess what? Guess what season it is? It's summer hurricane season's coming up. So we want to be careful with that. All right. Now, if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to chat below and whatnot, but also give me a call. One of the things that I do is I put around me some great guys, one of them being Mr. Ryan Hales with My Carolina Insurance, and he can help with your flood insurance, along with home insurance, car insurance, anything along those lines. But Ryan is a great guy. I do a lot of business with him and everything. But guys, with all this said, I hope this was a pretty good tip. And sip, because at the end of the day, I want you sitting on your front porch sipping sweet tea, okay? Because I love you with all my heart. I really do. But hopefully this information has let you know kind of what with flood zones, what's considered flood zones, where do you see flood zones at. A lot of people think the beach, and the biggest thing I hope to take away is actually the Piedmont actually has more flooding than here at the beach, which is pretty interesting. Out of all 4 areas, beach is the least amount. So guys, with that, God bless, have a great one. And not only do we have a live tip and sip, but we got a new live market update coming up Friday, and I believe it's with Pleasure Island. So check out and see what's happening with that. And with that said, we'll see y'all later.